Hey there, welcome to Sleepy History Secrets, the channel where history gets weird, but the voice stays calm. Tonight we're setting sail into the horrible life of pirates you wouldn't survive. That peculiar era when the romantic myth of freedom met the splinters of a wooden deck and the smell of unwashed democracy. Before we drift off together, take a moment to like the video or subscribe. Only if you genuinely enjoy falling asleep to stories about humanity's most regrettable decisions at sea. And if you can, drop a comment telling me where you're listening from and what time it is right now. It's strangely comforting to know how many of us are awake at the wrong hour, each in our own little ocean of insomnia. Now, dim the lights. Let the quiet hum of your fan pretend to be the wind against old sails. Maybe settle deeper into your bed. Your very clean, stationary, non-moving bed. Because the people in tonight's story didn't have one. And as you begin to relax, imagine the slow rhythm of the waves, the smell of salt, and the soft creak of rope straining in the dark. If your mind drifts, that's perfectly fine. We'll still be here, quietly unfolding the story of how adventure became exhaustion, and how the sea remembers every mistake you make on it. So, settle in, and let's climb aboard. You wake to the sound of wood complaining. It groans the way old bones do, as if even the planks are tired of being stepped on. The air is heavy with salt, rot, and something that might once have been food. Your head throbs, the floor moves, and a voice nearby mutters the worst kind of good news. You're on a ship now. You don't remember volunteering. That's because you didn't. You were taken. Pressed into service after one too many drinks in a dockside tavern, a friendly arm on your shoulder, a mug that tasted like celebration, then darkness. Now, here you are, property of the sea and unpaid labour for whoever happens to own the guns. They've already stripped you of anything useful. Money, shoes, pride. Your name no longer matters. The crew calls you fresh meat, which is technically true. You try to stand, but the floor slides away, and you realise the ship doesn't care whether you can walk. It moves as it pleases, a restless beast under your feet. A bucket tips over near your head. The smell hits before the realisation that's not soup, that's bilge water, the thin, greasy stew of everything that leaks, spills, and dies below deck. It runs down the planks in slow, silver veins, carrying the scent of home if a home were an abandoned fish market in midsummer. You breathe through your sleeve. It doesn't help. The first officer appears, tall, hollow-eyed, his coat stiff with salt. He doesn't shout, shouting would be effort. He just gestures to the lower deck. "Find a hammock," he says. "If it's empty, it's yours. If it's not, make it empty." The tone implies you'll be doing this frequently. Down below, it's darker than you thought possible in daylight. Lanterns swing from ropes, casting shadows that look alive. Dozens of hammocks sway like cocoons. Some are occupied by snoring, coughing men, some by others who no longer bother to do either. You pick one that looks least damp and test it. It creaks like it's reconsidering the arrangement. You climb in and instantly understand why sailors drink. The hammock tips. The ship lurches, and your stomach begins a quiet mutiny. Every movement smells faintly of mildew and fear. The ceiling drips. Something small and alive scurries across your ankle. You lie perfectly still, just to prove to yourself you're still human. The effort fails. Somewhere above, a bell rings. Breakfast. The word feels generous. You follow the others up the ladder to the main deck, blinking against the sudden glare. The ocean is blinding, endless blue swallowing the horizon. It should feel beautiful. Instead, it feels like a trap with better lighting. The cook, known simply as Cookie, ladles grey sludge from a pot that looks older than sin. "Stew," he says. "Mostly fish, probably." The smell disagrees. You take your portion, a dented tin bowl filled with something that glistens, reluctantly alive. Around you, the men eat in silence, slurping like machines. You do. The same. It tastes like salt, smoke, and apology. Someone spits beside you, missing your leg by an inch. Another sailor grins with a mouth missing more teeth than it keeps. Don't worry, he says, you'll get used to it. You won't. No one ever does. But everyone says it anyway, like a charm against sanity. The ship lurches again. You steady yourself on a rope slick with tar and wonder how many hands have held it before yours, and how many of those hands are still attached to anyone. The rope hums faintly with the vibration of the wind. You realise the whole ship is alive, a single creaking animal made of fear, sweat, and wood. By midday, you've learned 3 rules. First, the sea doesn't care. You could fall overboard, and it would close behind you like nothing happened. Second, every order is shouted, whether it's urgent or not. No one here trusts silence. And third, never stand under the yardarm when someone says duck. The lesson arrives violently, courtesy of a swinging beam and your new headache. The captain appears at last, a man who looks less like a leader and more like an ongoing illness. He surveys the deck with eyes that have seen too many mutinies and too few sunsets. His voice carries like a sermon in hell. Welcome to freedom, he says. Work hard, steal fair, die clean. The men cheer because they have to. You try to join them, but it comes out as a cough. The sun burns through the mist. You think of the tavern where this began, the warm fire, the laughter, the lie. Freedom, they said, is out there on the open sea. They were half right. It's out there, somewhere beyond the smell, beyond the noise, beyond the ropes cutting into your palms. You can almost see it, shimmering like a mirage over the endless blue. Then the wind shifts, the deck groans, and you remember, freedom is just another word for no dry clothes. The day ends with the sky bleeding into the horizon. The ship tilts gently toward night. You return to your hammock, still damp, still swinging, and realise this might be the closest thing you'll have to a home now. Someone above deck begins to sing, off-key and weary. The sound drifts through the wood like a lullaby written by exhaustion. You close your eyes, and the ship rocks you like a tired parent. Somewhere deep in its belly, the sea hums a low, endless note, neither kind nor cruel, just indifferent. Sleep comes slowly, smelling of salt and someone else's sweat. Welcome aboard. Morning comes slowly at sea, though morning is a generous word for what happens when light filters through cracks in the planks and the smell gets stronger. You wake up before the sun, not because of discipline, but because someone nearby is snoring like a dying foghorn. The hammock rocks gently, the boards creak, and the air feels thick enough to chew. Somewhere, water drips in a rhythm that could almost be music if it weren't so wet. You blink into the dim, light and realise that everything in your world is either soaked, sticky, or both. Even the wood sweats. The air smells like a stew of salt, mould, and human hope left out too long. You sit up, which turns out to be optimistic. The hammock tilts violently, dumping you halfway onto the floor. You land beside a rat who stares at you with the cold authority of a long-term tenant. You nod in apology. It leaves first, offended by your presence. Someone shouts from above, not words, just noise with intent. That's how most communication works here. You follow the others up the ladder to the main deck. The light is blinding. The sea stretches forever, calm and cruel, pretending innocence. The men shuffle into motion, hauling ropes, adjusting sails, cursing at things that can't hear them. The ship itself creaks and groans like an old priest who's lost his faith, but still does the sermons. Your task for the day is simple. Carry barrels of fresh water from one end of the ship to the other. The term fresh is more hope than reality. The barrels leak. The water tastes faintly of wood and regret, and each one weighs about as much as your enthusiasm. After the third trip, your shoulders ache and your palms burn from rope friction. You learn the rhythm quickly. Lift, stagger, curse, repeat. The sun rises higher, burning the salt into your skin until you feel crusted over like a loaf of unwanted bread. Lunch appears when Cookie decides the day is halfway over. Today's masterpiece is salted meat that used to be beef. Though the definition is flexible, you have to knock it against the table to break it apart. The men joke that it's aged better than most of them. You chew slowly, trying not to imagine what animal it once was. A weevil crawls out of the hardtack and onto your thumb. You flick it away and keep eating. The others don't even notice. It's not disgust, it's efficiency. The sky darkens suddenly, clouds rolling in like uninvited guests. Someone yells, "Storm!" and the deck bursts into motion. You're told to tie down the cargo. No one explains how. You watch others loop ropes through barrels, their hands moving faster than thought, and you copy them poorly. Rain begins as a whisper, then a slap, then a wall. The ship heaves as the wind screams through the rigging. The ocean rises to meet you, not out of affection, but curiosity about how well you can swim. The rain is warm, which would be pleasant if it weren't trying to drown you. Every breath tastes of salt. You cling to the nearest rope as the deck tilts at impossible angles. The sails snap like thunder. Men shout orders drowned by wind. Someone slides past you, disappears over the edge, and no one mentions it. The sea takes without ceremony. You hang on until your arms go numb. Time stops meaning anything. Then, as quickly as it began, the storm grows tired and leaves. The world drips in exhausted silence. Afterward, everything smells worse. The rain didn't clean. It stirred the filth. The deck is slick with seaweed, vomit, and whatever lived inside the barrels that broke open. The air below deck steams with heat and human breath. You crawl back into the dim belly of the ship, soaked to the bone, your clothes heavy and clinging like punishment. Around you, men wring out shirts and curse in creative harmony. You realise this is what passes for bonding. Cookie ladles out dinner, something brown, possibly stew. It's hard to tell if it's meant to be eaten or repaired. You spoon it carefully, aware that warmth alone makes it precious. A sailor beside you hums a tune. It's low and sad, with words half swallowed by the smell of rum. You ask what it's called. He shrugs. "Doesn't matter," he says. "The song always ends the same way. Somebody sinks." The evening passes in tired conversation. Someone complains about the captain. Someone else complains about life. A third man mutters about ghosts in the water, eyes glowing beneath the waves. The others laugh, but not loudly. At sea, you don't joke too hard about ghosts. You've already got enough company. When night falls, you lie back in your hammock, still damp, still swaying. The ship creaks in its sleep. The smell hasn't improved, it's simply changed its flavour. Less rain, more man. You think about the storm, about the man who slid into the water without a sound. You wonder how many names the ocean remembers and how many it simply digests. Above you, a single lantern sways, making shadows dance on the ceiling like restless souls looking for a quieter place to haunt. Someone coughs, someone else snores. A rat scurries across the beam overhead. You close your eyes and try to pretend the rocking is gentle, that the smell is tolerable, that you chose this life. You almost believe it for a moment, until another drop of rain seeps through the roof and lands cold on your forehead. The ship groans in sympathy. You sigh. Sleep comes late and uneasy, like a visitor who knocks but never enters. If there's one truth you've learned already, it's this: you'll never be dry again. Not your clothes, not your bed, not your thoughts. The sea finds its way into everything, into wood, into lungs, into memory. It fills every gap until even your dreams smell faintly of salt. The morning arrives without permission. It simply fades in like a ghost deciding to stay. You wake before the bell, half convinced the sound of waves is whispering your name. The air below deck feels thicker than sleep, sweet with rot and stale rum. You swing out of the hammock and land softly on the boards, which groan in disapproval. Every step leaves a faint print of dampness, as if the sea is marking you for collection later. Up on deck, the horizon burns pale gold. The storm has left behind a silence so deep you can hear the creak of every rope. Men shuffle out from the shadows, yawning, scratching, muttering about breakfast. You catch sight of the captain standing near the helm, coat flapping in the wind, a dark figure against a brighter world. He stares at the sunrise like he's daring it to blink. Around him, the ship moves in rhythm, men hauling, ropes tightening, the sea breathing its slow, endless breath. It looks almost peaceful. It isn't. You join a group refilling barrels with captured rainwater. Someone hands you a cup made from a broken gourd. The water inside is warm, slightly brown, but after yesterday's storm it tastes like grace. The man next to you laughs. Better than rum, he says. You nod, though he's clearly lying. Nobody here likes water, it's just the only thing they can't steal. Cookie bangs a spoon against a pot the size of a grave. Breakfast is served. Today it's boiled oats, or what's left of them, grey and lumpy, floating in something that looks like melted tin. A few men find pieces of dried fruit in their bowls, treasures for the lucky. You find nothing except one small stone, which you choose to believe is intentional seasoning. Around you, conversation drifts like fog. Complaints about the weather, the captain, the taste of salt that never leaves your mouth. The sound of spoons scraping metal bowls becomes the morning hymn. When the captain finally speaks, it's through the quartermaster, a man whose voice sounds like it's been soaked in vinegar. "We've taken on a new hand," he announces, pointing at a young man barely out of boyhood. "He signed on willingly." That draws laughter, sharp and bitter. No one signs on willingly, not anymore. The boy nods bravely, pretending not to notice the missing fingers and half-blind eyes studying him. He'll learn soon enough that bravery is just another kind of ignorance. The quartermaster continues, unrolling a piece of cloth covered in ink stains and oily fingerprints. "The Articles of Agreement," he declares. "Every man aboard signs or scratches his mark. These are the laws that keep us from killing each other before the sea does." He reads slowly, as though the words might bite. "Each rule is older than the ship itself. Everyone gets a share of the loot. The captain's portion is no more than the carpenter's. Anyone caught stealing from another man loses his hand. Anyone caught cheating in cards loses his teeth. Fighting without permission earns a flogging. Bringing women aboard earns worse. Even music has rules. Only after dusk. Only if someone can still stand to dance." You realise this is their version of civilization. A kind of democracy that smells faintly of blood. When it's your turn, you dip a finger in ink and press it to the page. Your mark joins the others. Smudges, crosses, crude initials. Each one is a confession of belonging. You've been baptised again, not by water this time, but by obligation. Later, while scrubbing the deck, you overhear two older sailors debating the word freedom. One says it's the right to live without kings. The other says it's the right to die on your own terms. You keep your head down, but you're listening. The first man spits into the sea. "Freedom's just a prettier word for hunger," he mutters. The second one laughs. "Aye, but at least it's ours." By midday, the heat rises like a punishment. The sun stares directly at you, unblinking, merciless. Sweat runs down your back, mixing with salt until your skin burns. The ropes leave marks on your palms, half wounds, half handwriting from the ship itself. You think about walking away, then remember there's nowhere to walk. The horizon is an empty promise, flat and infinite. Even rebellion here feels circular. The afternoon passes in work too dull to remember, hauling, coiling, scraping, swearing. At one point the captain orders the flag raised, black stitched with crude bones, the Jolly Roger. It flaps lazily in the weak wind, half torn, half proud. You watch it for a long moment and feel something unfamiliar. Not pride, not fear, just awareness. That flag means death to others, but life to you. It's a warning for one side, a paycheck for the other, the sky above it stays bright and indifferent. As the sun sinks, the deck grows quiet. The men gather near the mast, passing around a bottle of rum that smells like forgiveness. Someone strums a broken mandolin. The music is soft, almost gentle, a melody about home, or maybe about nowhere at all. You close your eyes and let it drift through you. For a moment, the sea feels less like a prison and more like a lullaby that forgot its words. Then, from the shadows, the captain's voice breaks the spell. "Remember why you're here," he says. "No kings, no masters, no mercy." The men cheer because that's the ritual. You whisper the words too, quietly, not because you believe them, but because everyone else does. That's how freedom works here, by agreement, not conviction. When night comes, the stars appear, cold and precise. They look close enough to touch, yet impossibly far. One of the navigators points out the constellations, his map, his compass, his tiny claim to control. He calls it dead reckoning, but what it really means is guessing politely in the dark. You watch him trace invisible lines across the sky, and you realise how human that gesture is, pretending certainty in an ocean that never repeats itself. You lie back in your hammock, the air buzzing with snores and whispered prayers. Someone nearby dreams aloud, calling for a mother who's been dead for years. Another man laughs in his sleep, maybe remembering something that wasn't cruel. You close your eyes and think about the flag, the articles, the cheers. They promised freedom. They delivered motion, endless, heavy, circular motion. And yet, deep down, you understand the secret none of them will say out loud. They need the lie. Without it, there's only the sea, and the sea doesn't care who commands it. Sleep comes with the rhythm of the waves. You drift between thought and memory, between the sound of wood and the taste of salt. Somewhere above, the black flag whispers in the wind, still pretending to mean something. You let it. Believing is easier than thinking. By the next morning, the ink on your finger has already faded, but the promise it marked does not. The Articles of Agreement, the Pirate's Code, hang nailed near the main mast, fluttering like a sermon written by men who don't believe in heaven. The parchment is stained with salt, rum, and time. The words are half gone, but everyone here knows them by heart. They are not rules so much as threats written in polite handwriting. Each ship writes its own version, but the bones are always the same. Equal shares for all. No stealing from a crewmate. No fighting on deck without the captain's consent. Lights out by 8 bells. Gambling only when the sea is calm. And no women aboard, at least not officially. For every rule, there's a story about the man who inspired it, usually ending badly. One old sailor points to a line forbidding theft of rum. That was because of Finch, he says. Tried to water it down, lost an ear instead. The rest of the crew nod as though morality is measured in missing limbs. You stand in front of the parchment and read slowly. The letters tilt where the paper dried unevenly, as if the ship itself was already rocking when the ink was fresh. The handwriting is jagged, impatient, the product of someone unused to writing but eager to command. Beside the code, small carvings mark the mast. Names, tally marks, crude symbols of skulls and hearts. A living archive of both law and failure. The quartermaster, who acts as judge and accountant, strolls by and taps the parchment with a finger. "That's freedom," he says, half smiling. Fairness carved out of chaos. He doesn't add the obvious. Fairness lasts only until the next storm, or the next fight, or the next shortage of rum. But in this floating world, even temporary fairness feels like civilization. Later, during midday rest, the men gather in the shade of the sails. One of them, an old hand with a beard like rotted rope, tells a story about the time they rewrote the articles after a mutiny. The captain had gotten too proud, he says, started eating fresh bread while the rest of us gnawed salt, so they voted him out. The phrase sounds gentle, almost civilized, until you realize voted out meant tied to a barrel and left behind near the coast of Hispaniola. A floating retirement plan. There's laughter, but it's nervous laughter. The moral is simple. Leadership here is temporary, and democracy is only as strong as the nearest rope. The sea doesn't respect hierarchy, and neither do men who have lost everything to it. For every rule that keeps order, there's another that keeps fear alive. In the afternoon heat, you help the quartermaster divide the latest ration of rum. It's a serious process, observed like a religious ritual. Each man receives an equal measure, poured carefully into tin cups that have seen more punishment than ceremony. A few droplets spill onto the deck, quickly sucked into the wood as though the ship itself were thirsty. One sailor mutters a short prayer before drinking, a superstition as common as splinters. You take your cup, sip, and feel the burn crawl down your throat, part pain, part comfort. The ocean might kill you tomorrow, but tonight at least, it won't do so sober. As dusk falls, a new order is read aloud. Music aloud for an hour. Someone brings out a fiddle missing a string. Another man beats a drum made from a barrel and stretched hide. The rhythm begins uneven, then steadies as feet tap and voices rise. It's not joy exactly, but defiance dressed as rhythm. The ship sways gently, almost dancing with them. Even the rats seem to pause, listening. One of the younger sailors, his face still soft from youth, whispers to you, "Feels like home, doesn't it?" You nod, though you've forgotten what home smelled like. Maybe it was something like this: salt, sweat, laughter, and the sound of people pretending everything was fine. The music ends when the captain appears on deck. He doesn't shout. He never needs to. His presence is gravity itself. The fiddle falls silent. The captain glances at the parchment nailed to the mast. "The code keeps us human," he says quietly. "Remember that when the sea tries to take it away." Then he turns and disappears below deck, leaving behind the faint echo of boots on wood. The men stand there a moment, uncertain whether to move. Then the quartermaster chuckles. He says that every week, he mutters, and every week someone forgets. Laughter returns, smaller now, but easier. The fiddle resumes, slower this time, softer, like a lullaby for the damned. Later, in the dim light below deck, you find yourself staring at your own hands. The rope burns, the faint stains of ink, the trembling from too much rum. You realise that the articles are more than rules. They're a story. One the crew tells themselves to believe that order exists somewhere between the madness and the sea. Without them, there's nothing to hold back the dark. Before sleep you pass the mast again. Someone has added a new line beneath the parchment, scratched with a knife point. If you steal, you lose a finger. If you lie, you lose your tongue. If you dream, you lose both. You smile at the last part. It's meant as a joke, but it sounds like prophecy. The ship creaks in rhythm with the waves. Somewhere in the dark, a man hums an old tune barely above a whisper. You close your eyes and listen, wondering if the song began as a warning or just another way to keep fear quiet. The difference doesn't really matter. The sea listens either way. The night smells of tar and tired men. The code flutters faintly in the breeze above your head, like a flag too small to save, anyone but too stubborn to die. And for now, that's enough. The sea can wait. The code will hold, at least until morning. The next morning, the deck smells faintly of yesterday's rum and last week's decisions. The wind has gone lazy, the sails hang half-hearted, and the crew moves like they're waiting for something to happen. Something always does. A quiet ship never stays quiet for long. Silence here is like calm water, beautiful, but hiding something sharp underneath. It begins with a shout. Two men, both angry enough to forget they're on the same side, are arguing over a game of dice. The prize wasn't money, it was tobacco, which means it's serious. One accuses the other of cheating, the other denies it with a punch. The first responds with a knife. It's the usual rhythm of pirate logic: suspicion, violence, and regret in that order. The quartermaster intervenes before the knife finds a home. He doesn't yell. He just raises a pistol and waits. The sound of a hammercocking is a universal language. Everyone stops. The captain steps out from the shadows, calm as dawn, and says only 2 words: "Hold court." The phrase carries weight. It means the code will decide. The entire crew gathers around the mast, forming a loose circle. The accused stand in the middle, breathing hard, blood mixing with sweat. The quartermaster reads the rule out loud. No fighting on deck without consent of the captain. It's simple, clear, and inconvenient for everyone involved. The first man defends himself with the time-honoured logic of desperation. "He called me a thief," the other replies. "You are one." Technically both are right. The captain listens, silent, his face unreadable beneath the shadow of his hat. Then he nods. "The code is the code," he says. "No one fights without leave." The punishment isn't death. Death would be too clean. Instead, the men are ordered to receive lashes, 10 each, 1 for every minute of stupidity. The crew murmurs approval. Justice must be seen, even if it doesn't change anything. They tie the first man to the rail. The whip makes a sound like tearing cloth. The onlookers don't cheer, but they don't look away either. It's not cruelty, it's maintenance. The ship stays afloat on fear and fairness in equal measure. After the 10th lash, the captain nods again, and the man is released. The next steps forward without being asked. He knows resistance would only add to the count. The punishment repeats. Same sound, same silence afterward. When it's over, both men shake hands because they have to. The sea doesn't allow grudges, it keeps them for itself. Later, when the blood has dried and the deck has been scrubbed, the quartermaster pours a little rum into 2 cups and hands 1 to each of the punished men. "To equality," he says. They drink, grimacing at the sting. For a moment, everyone laughs. The laughter sounds genuine, but it isn't. It's just the ship exhaling. By midday, the wind picks up. The sails fill and the ship glides forward, eager to forget. But you can still feel the tension hanging in the air, invisible as humidity. Every man here knows how thin the line is between order and mutiny. That's why they call it democracy. Not because everyone's free, but because everyone's armed. You find yourself next to the old sailor with the beard like rope. He's mending a net with fingers that look like they've already been punished for everything you could imagine. He glances at you and says, "Fairness keeps us honest. Fear keeps us alive." He pulls the string tight, nodding to himself. "Never confuse the two." You don't answer. There's nothing to add. Later that day, the crew votes on whether to change course toward a rumoured merchant ship. The process is strangely organised. The captain steps back while the quartermaster calls for hands. Half rise, half don't. The argument begins politely, which is impressive considering the heat and lack of shade. Voices rise, words sharpen, fists follow. Someone throws a spoon, someone else throws the man who threw it. The decision ends as all decisions here do, with shouting, rum, and eventual exhaustion. The captain watches the chaos with faint amusement. Democracy, he says, at its finest. The ship continues on its previous course anyway. At sunset, the punished men return to their duties as if nothing happened. Their backs are raw, their faces calm. One hums under his breath, the tune oddly cheerful. You realise that pain here is like weather, noticed, endured, and forgotten once it passes. The sea forgives nothing, but it distracts generously. As night falls, a strange calm settles again. The captain calls for the black flag to be lowered for repairs. In the fading light, it looks almost gentle, its edges frayed from too many storms. The white skull on its surface is fading too, smudged by salt and sun. A symbol of fear slowly becoming a memory. You watch it come down, and the thought crosses your mind that maybe all symbols die this way. Not destroyed, just weathered into irrelevance. Below deck, the men gather around a small lamp to play cards, the same game that started the fight. This time they laugh more easily, but every laugh has an echo of caution. The boy who joined last week watches from a corner, silent, eyes wide. He's learning fast. Laughter here is permission, not joy. You climb into your hammock, the sound of cards shuffling beneath you like the heartbeat of the ship. The wind hums through the ropes, a lullaby made of sighs. You think about the word justice, how it changes shape depending on who holds the whip. On land, it's a matter of courts and kings. Out here, it's a rhythm, a performance meant to keep the world from unravelling. You close your eyes and wonder if it's working. The ship rocks gently, pretending to be kind. You drift towards sleep with the faint taste of salt still on your tongue and the memory of laughter that wasn't entirely false. Somewhere above, the captain paces the deck, counting stars instead of votes. The sea rolls beneath, patient and unamused. It has seen every kind of democracy, and none of them last. Before you finally fade, you hear a whisper from a nearby hammock, a quiet voice, half dream, half prayer. Fair or not, it keeps us alive. You don't know if it's true. You only know it sounds good enough to believe until morning. The morning begins in an ordinary way, which is always the most dangerous kind. The sea is calm, the wind steady, and the crew almost cheerful. You would think peace had finally settled in. But peace on a pirate ship is like calm water before a shark's fin. It never lasts long, and it's never real. The bell rings once, then twice. Everyone stops moving. The sound doesn't echo. It lands like a warning. The quartermaster walks out, holding a coil of rope, his expression flat and efficient. Behind him, 2 sailors drag a man by the arms, one of their own, wrists bound, face pale and defiant. His name, you think, is Tate. Though on this ship, names are as temporary as weather. He's accused of stealing from the rum ration. The punishment, the quartermaster says, will be traditional. No one asks what that means. They already know. The crew gathers around the main mast. The captain appears without hurry, like a storm deciding whether to happen. He looks at Tate for a long moment, then speaks softly, almost kindly. "You broke the code," he says, "and the code is all we've got." Tate says nothing. He just stares at the rope as if trying to memorize it. The quartermaster begins to tie knots, careful, practiced loops, each one neat enough to make a carpenter proud. There's no rage in it, only routine. The first punishment is the lash, not to kill, just to remind. The whip cracks through the morning air, slicing the silence into pieces. 10 strokes, counted by the boatswain's steady voice. The sound is sharp but rhythmic, like the ship exhaling through gritted teeth. The crew watches without speaking. It's not cruelty, it's administration. Pain is cheaper than chaos. When it's over, Tate sags against the mast, breathing hard. The captain nods. "Cut him loose," he says, "but leave him without rum for a week." A low murmur ripples through the men. A week without rum is an eternity measured in thirst. Tate spits blood, wipes his mouth, and walks away on his own. The ceremony ends as quickly as it began. The crew scatters. No one speaks his name again. But punishment comes in more forms than rope and whip. Sometimes it comes in silence. That evening, when Tate tries to sit among the others, they simply move away. They stop answering when he speaks. They leave his food untouched and his hammock half unfastened. The isolation spreads like fog, invisible but suffocating. You watch it happen, realizing that loneliness here is worse than pain. The ship is too small for anyone to vanish, yet somehow he already has. The next night, you hear him whispering to himself, words too quiet to catch. On the 3rd night, the whispers stop. Someone says he climbed up to the rail and kept walking. No one saw him fall. The ocean took him in silence, without ceremony. At dawn, the captain stands on deck and stares at the horizon. He's part of the sea now, he says simply. Then he orders the sails adjusted and life continues. There's no funeral, no prayer, no pause. The ship can't afford sentiment. It already carries too much weight. Still, something lingers. The mood shifts, subtle but certain. Laughter becomes rarer. Voices drop lower. The men glance over their shoulders more often, as if expecting the ghost of Tate to climb back aboard. Even Cookie, who usually hums while stirring his mysterious stew, works in silence. The sea reflects their mood perfectly, flat, grey and waiting. That night, the wind dies completely. The sails hang limp, and the ship drifts without direction. The stillness feels unnatural. Every creak sounds too loud, every breath too close. The captain orders the lamps dim to conserve oil. In the half-dark, shadows move strangely. Someone swears they hear footsteps on the deck, slow, dragging, unhurried. No one investigates. It's easier to let superstition fill the silence. Below deck, you lie in your hammock, unable to sleep. The air is thick and unmoving, the smell of tar and sweat amplified by the heat. You listen to the sounds around you. A man coughing, another muttering in dreams, the steady drip of water from somewhere above. Then you hear it, a faint tapping, soft and deliberate, coming from outside the hull. Tap, pause, tap, like knuckles on wood. You hold your breath. It comes again, slightly lower, closer to your feet. You tell yourself it's the sea. You don't believe it. The next morning, the quartermaster finds something on the side of the ship. A scrap of cloth caught on a nail, darkened by salt and sun. It might have been part of a shirt. It might have been nothing. He doesn't mention it to the captain. Some things, he says, are better left as mysteries. The men agree. The ocean doesn't need reminders. It keeps its own records. By midday, the wind returns, sudden and strong. The sails billow and the ship surges forward as if waking from a bad dream. The men cheer half-heartedly. Work resumes. The noise returns. But every now and then someone glances at the rail and looks away quickly. The silence hasn't gone. It's just learned how to hide behind the sound of the waves. That evening, the captain gathers the crew for a brief speech. He doesn't mention Tate. He doesn't have to. This sea takes what it wants, he says. Our job is to stay useful enough that it keeps waiting. The men nod, some solemn, some pretending not to understand. Then he smiles. The weary smile of a man who's buried too many names, and dismisses them with a wave. As darkness falls again, you find yourself staring at the rope still hanging from the mast. It swings gently in the breeze, creaking softly, like a memory that refuses to die. The sound is oddly soothing, like a lullaby for the living. You close your eyes and listen. Somewhere beyond the edge of hearing, the sea hums along. You think of all the ways discipline holds this floating world together. Not through kindness, not even through fear, but through repetition. Every day begins the same way, ends the same way. The rules keep you breathing, and the silence keeps you from asking why. It's a balance, fragile as a lantern in the wind. For now, it holds. Sleep comes slower tonight. The air is cooler, the hammock still. You drift half awake, half listening to the waves. Somewhere in that steady rhythm, you can almost hear a voice. It doesn't sound angry or kind, just tired. Maybe the sea really does remember every name, and maybe it whispers them back one by one, forever. The sun hasn't yet found the courage to rise, but Cookie has. You know this because something is burning. The smell crawls through the lower deck like smoke looking for a reason. Men stir in their hammocks, coughing, scratching, muttering curses that sound like prayer. Someone groans, breakfast, as if it were both prophecy and complaint. You climb down, head heavy, tongue dry, and step into a day that already feels overcooked. The galley is little more than a corner with ambition. A pot the size of your hope sits on a small iron grate. Inside, something bubbles reluctantly, a mixture of salt meat, water, and fatigue. Cookie stirs it with a spoon that might once have been a sword. His apron is a colour that doesn't exist in nature. He gives you a grin with more gaps than teeth. "Morning feast," he says. The word feast struggles to survive in the sentence. The menu doesn't change much out here. Salt beef, hardtack, and whatever the ocean hasn't claimed yet. The beef arrives in slabs so stiff you could use them as armour. You beat them against the table until they soften, which they don't. The hardtack is a biscuit designed by someone who hated joy. A small, white brick of flour, water, and centuries of disappointment. Each one hums faintly when you drop it. Sometimes it cracks. Sometimes you do. You bite into it carefully and hear a crunch that isn't bread. The weevils are already there, tiny, pale, and busy. The joke on board is that they're the only fresh meat you'll see all week. Some sailors tap their biscuits to shake the insects out. Others don't bother. They claim the bugs add flavour, or at least movement. Cookie calls it protein. You call it compromise. The salt beef tastes of regret. It's been boiled, soaked, cursed at, and still refuses to be edible. You chew until your jaw hurts, until your teeth protest, until you begin to miss the taste of nothing. When you finally swallow, it lands heavy, like a debt you didn't mean to pay. Around you, men eat in silence. The sound of chewing fills the air, rhythmic and resigned, the heartbeat of hunger that never learns. Someone tells a story to break the monotony. It's about a man on another ship who swore he saw angels after eating spoiled pork. They had wings, the storyteller says, and knives. The crew laughs, quietly, without mirth. You can tell they've all had similar visions. The ocean has a way of seasoning dreams with hunger. You glance toward the horizon through a gap in the planks. The sky is pale, the colour of weak tea. It's strange how much beauty hides behind the smell of decay. The wind carries the scent of salt and smoke, blending with the stew until you can't tell which one is winning. The line between food and punishment becomes blurry. At noon, Cookie announces a delicacy: biscuits fried in rum. The sound of the word fried lifts spirits, but only briefly. What he means is the biscuits were dropped into a pan of warm grease until they caught fire. Still, the smell is different, and difference counts as luxury. You eat yours slowly, pretending to taste victory. Someone jokes that if you survive this meal, you can survive eternity. No one argues. By mid-afternoon, the deck bakes under the sun. Men sprawl in whatever shade the mast can offer, their shirts dark with sweat. You sit with a cup of rainwater that tastes like wood and dust. The air hums with flies, the ship's unofficial crew. One lands on your lip, bold and patient. You flick it away gently. It returns immediately. Persistence, you think, is the one thing everyone shares here. Flies, sailors, even the beef. Later, as the light fades, Cookie reveals dinner. The same stew as breakfast, only older. The smell is a familiar companion now, comforting in its predictability. You eat it without question, without taste, without rebellion. The sea teaches you that appetite is optional, but hunger isn't. Someone pulls out a scrap of paper and begins a list of things he'll eat when he gets back to land. Bread that breaks softly, cheese that doesn't move, fruit with colour, and wine that smells of earth instead of tar. The others add to the list: roasted chicken, butter, anything green. You add silence, because even meals here make noise. As night arrives, Cookie sits by his pot, staring into the broth like it might answer something. You wonder how long he's been doing this, how many storms and mornings he's boiled together into the same grey stew. He catches your gaze and shrugs. "Keeps us alive," he says. "That's all the sea asks." His voice carries the calm of someone who long ago stopped expecting flavour. You return to your hammock, your stomach heavy and your mouth dry. The taste lingers, sharp and metallic. You can't tell whether it's from salt, iron or despair. Above deck, the wind, changes direction, bringing in a colder smell, cleaner somehow. You breathe it deeply, grateful for anything different. It lasts only a moment before the scent of dinner returns, determined as the tide. You lie back, listening to the creak of the ship and the slow rumble of the waves. Someone nearby snores. Another man mutters the same prayer he says before every meal, "Let it stay down." You close your eyes, smiling faintly. Faith, it seems, is another form of digestion. Sleep comes easily tonight. Hunger has its own rhythm, one that eventually sings you to rest. You dream of bread you can actually bite without bleeding, of warm butter melting across your tongue, of sunlight on clean linen. But even in your dreams you can taste the sea. It never leaves. It's in the air, the food, the jokes and the silence between them. The sea has fed you in its own way, just not gently. Morning begins with a scream. It's not loud. It's the kind of sound that starts small and tries not to exist. But wood carries everything on a ship. Laughter, whispers, and pain. You open your eyes and already know where it came from. The surgeon's corner. No one calls it an infirmary. That would be too generous. It's a small space behind a hanging sheet, smelling of old blood, rum, and smoke. The ship's doctor, if you can call him that, is a man named Gristle. No one knows his real name, or if he ever studied medicine. He says he did, though no one dares ask where. His hands are steady, which counts more than credentials. He has a collection of tools that would frighten iron itself. Saws, knives, a hammer, a few lengths of wire, and a jar of something that used to be alcohol. He keeps them clean, or clean enough. He says rust is just seasoning. When someone gets hurt, they come to Gristle, not because they trust him, but because they don't have another choice. The patient today is a sailor named Duffy, a man who once bragged he'd never fall sick at sea. He's sitting on a barrel, pale and shaking, clutching his arm. The arm isn't right. The skin around a small wound has turned black, and the smell says it's not going to improve. Gristle studies it like a carpenter inspecting a rotten beam. He hums, which is never a good sign. "Best to take it off," he says. Duffy laughs, then stops when no one else does. The surgery begins at dawn and ends whenever the body stops protesting. There's no table, only planks, and no anaesthetic except a bottle of rum. Gristle pours half over the wound, half down Duffy's throat, then nods to the men holding him still. The saw starts slow, almost politely. You turn away, but the sound follows. A dry, rhythmic scrape, like someone cutting through a memory. Duffy screams once, then bites down on a piece of rope and goes quiet. Gristle doesn't look up. His face is calm, his eyes steady, as if he's somewhere else entirely. You realise he probably is. When it's over, the arm is gone. The deck is red, and Gristle is wiping his tools with a rag that used to be white. He'll live, he says, not to comfort anyone, just to mark the outcome. The men carry Duffy away to rest. Gristle drops the arm into a bucket and hums again. The tune is cheerful. You recognise it as the same melody sailors sing when they haul ropes. Work is work. Later, you find Gristle on deck, smoking a pipe and staring at the horizon. He looks tired, though his expression never changes. You ask how he learned his trade. He grins, showing a gold tooth that looks more expensive than his soul. Practice, he says. Lots of practice. You don't ask any more questions. Throughout the day, men visit him with smaller complaints. Splinters, infected cuts, loose teeth, nightmares. For every problem, Gristle has one of 3 solutions: a knife, a stitch, or rum. Sometimes all 3. He calls it the Trinity of Survival. He works by candlelight when he must, the flame flickering across faces pale with fear. There's no privacy. The ship listens to everything. Every groan, every muttered curse becomes part of the rhythm of life aboard. Tooth extractions are his specialty. He uses pliers once meant for repairing the ship's rigging. The process is quick and spectacularly unpopular. Some men watch for entertainment, others out of solidarity. When the tooth finally comes free, Gristle holds it up like a prize and drops it into a small wooden box. For luck, he says. The box rattles when the ship moves, like bones in a rattle. You suspect it's part superstition, part inventory. That evening Duffy wakes. He's alive, which surprises everyone, including him. His stump is bandaged with strips of sailcloth, and he looks around as if expecting applause. "Guess I'm lighter now," he mutters. The men laugh, quietly relieved. Someone hands him a cup of rum. He drinks with his left hand, spills half, and smiles anyway. The captain stops by, nods once and says, "Good work, Gristle." The surgeon doesn't reply. He's already busy sharpening the saw. After dinner, you sit near him as he cleans his tools. The candlelight makes his face look carved from the same wood as the ship. You ask if it ever bothers him. All the blood, all the noise. He shrugs. "Bothered me once," he says. "Stopped bothering me when I realised it's all the same colour in the end." He sets down the saw, wipes his hands on his coat and leans back. You do what keeps the rest alive, or you drink. Sometimes both. You study the tools on his bench, the dull gleam of metal, the faint scratches of use. Each one is a history lesson in pain. Gristle taps the side of one knife. "She's the best one," he says. "Never fails, never complains." He says it the way other men speak of wives. Later that night, when the ship grows quiet and the lanterns dim, you hear footsteps in the galley. Gristle again, checking on his patient. You follow at a distance. Duffy is asleep, breathing unevenly. The surgeon kneels, adjusts the bandage, and whispers something you can't hear. His hand hovers for a moment, then rests gently on the man's shoulder. For the first time, he looks human. Then he stands, collects his tools, and disappears back into the dark. You lie awake for a while, thinking about him. This man who cuts to save, who drinks to forget, who hums to keep his hands from shaking. The sea has its own kind of doctors, and none of them heal cleanly. Out here, medicine is another form of luck, and Gristle might be the luckiest man alive. The waves murmur outside, endless and indifferent. You close your eyes and imagine his voice, low and steady, saying what he always says before a cut. It'll be over soon. It's both comfort and curse. On this ship, everything eventually ends that way. Over soon. You wake in darkness that smells faintly of vinegar and ben. The air doesn't move. It presses down like a wet blanket, heavy and sour. You don't remember sleeping, only stopping for a while. Around you, the ship breathes in its slow, creaking rhythm. Someone coughs. Someone else groans. Somewhere, a bucket tips over and doesn't bother to apologise. This is the closest thing to dawn in the lower deck. Not light, but sound. When you climb up the ladder, the sky is grey and flat, the colour of pewter. The sea looks tired. So does everyone on board. Duffy. The man missing an arm lies near the galley, pale and sweating. His bandages are stained yellow around the edges, and flies hover like small prayers. Gristle leans over him, muttering about fever, infection and stubbornness. He pours rum over the wound, wipes it with a rag and says, "He'll live if the sea forgets about him for a few days." It's not a medical term, but out here it's close enough. You eat breakfast, the same salted meat and hardtack, somehow saltier and harder than yesterday. The cook offers a ladle of thin broth, a gesture toward kindness. It smells faintly of mould, but tastes like warmth, which is all that matters. Around you, the men are quieter than usual. The laughter from last week feels far away. Everyone looks pale, their eyes rimmed with exhaustion. You notice sores on arms, on necks, on faces. The sea gives gifts no one asks for. By midday, the wind dies again, leaving the ship floating in still water. The heat builds slowly, pressing from all sides. Sweat drips from the sails, the ropes, your own skin. The smell of men grows thick. Salt, grease, sickness and smoke all blended into one heavy perfume. A few sailors strip down and pour buckets of seawater over themselves, shouting at the shock. For a moment they look alive again, until they remember the salt sting's open cuts. Then they swear and go quiet. Below deck, the air thickens into something almost visible. Flies buzz. Rats scurry openly. The hold has become a marketplace for disease. You can hear men coughing, in different rhythms, one deep, one shallow, one sharp enough to sound like a nail being hammered. Someone jokes that you could write music with it. No one laughs. The ship's doctor moves from man to man, muttering. "Too long at sea," he says. "Too much salt, not enough sun." He's not wrong, though the irony is cruel. They live surrounded by sunlight and water, yet both are poison in excess. He opens a mouth to check gums and shakes his head. The flesh is swollen, bleeding, purple. "Scurvy," he whispers. The word falls heavy, though no one really knows what it means. Only that it ends badly. By late afternoon, a man named Leary collapses while climbing the rigging. His body hits the deck with a sound that silences everyone. Gristle arrives, wipes sweat from his brow and checks for life. "Still breathing," he says, which is the closest thing to optimism you've heard in days. He orders the man carried below. The rest of the crew returns to work without speaking. Work is safer than thinking. The captain appears near sunset. His face is calm, but his eyes look carved out of worry. He calls for the men to line up. One by one he looks them over. The sores, the pale skin, the trembling hands. He says little, only nods. "Keep clean," he advises, as though cleanliness is something that can exist here. "Boil your water." Cookie nods obediently, then mutters that boiling salt water makes soup for ghosts. When night falls, the ship becomes quieter than usual. The sick lie still, breathing in shallow patterns. You sit nearby, half watching, half praying without purpose. The lanterns sway gently, painting gold on sweat and shadows on fear. The air smells of rust and medicine, if rum counts as medicine. You catch Gristle humming again, that same low tune, the one that sounds almost cheerful until you listen closely. It's the song of someone trying not to hear pain. You help him change a bandage. The cloth is stiff with dried blood. He cuts away a layer of infection with a small knife, wipes the wound clean, then pours rum. The patient flinches but doesn't wake. "He'll see morning," Gristle says, then softer, "Maybe." You nod. Words don't matter here. Only the rhythm of survival does. The candlelight flickers across his tools, turning every metal edge into a brief flash of gold. In that glow, even death looks almost civilized. Outside, the sea murmurs. The waves are slow and thick, brushing the hull with a sound like distant breathing. You step out for air and find the horizon empty, endless, indifferent. You try to remember what fresh air smelled like. You can't. The sky above you is streaked with stars, but they look cold, uninterested in the small dramas below. Somewhere, a gull cries. The only thing on earth that sounds lonelier than you? When you return below, a man has died. Not dramatically. He simply stopped breathing between one creak of the ship and the next. The others close his eyes and cover his face with a piece of cloth. No one prays aloud. They just sit in silence for a while, listening to the boards groan. After a minute, the captain orders the body carried up and over. The sea receives it without comment, as it always does. A splash, a ripple, and then nothing. Later, Cookie pours himself a drink and raises the cup quietly. "To him," he says. The others drink without asking who him was. At sea, names fade faster than wounds. You lie back in your hammock. The air is thick again. Your skin itches. Your lips taste of salt and fear. You think about how this ship has become a floating sick room, a coffin that just hasn't made up its mind yet. You can almost hear the fever spreading, in breath, in cough, in whispered curses. Somewhere below, a rat squeals. You can't tell whether it's dying or celebrating. As sleep pulls you under, you realise something simple but profound. The sea doesn't need to kill you quickly. It only needs to keep you here long enough for the rest to do the job. Hygiene and hope share the same fate. None. The ship drifts on, carrying both the living and the nearly not. You close your eyes, tasting the air, hearing the faint hum of waves. For a moment, you almost think you can smell the fever before you see it. Then the darkness swallows the thought, and you drift into another uneasy night, rocking gently on an ocean that never forgets. By now you've learned that fear has a sound. It's the snap of canvas in a sudden gust, the creak of rope pulling tighter than it should, the silence before a shout. But on this ship, fear also has a face, painted white on black with empty eyes that never blink. The Jolly Roger, the pirate's flag, hangs above you like a ghost pretending to be cloth. It flutters lazily in the wind, stitched from old sail and worse intentions. Each patch tells a story. A rip from a merchant ship taken years ago. A strip of canvas from a storm that almost ended everyone. The edges are uneven, soaked in salt, stiff with time. It's not a flag made for ceremony. It's a warning written in fabric. When it moves, it sounds like breathing. The symbols are simple, but not gentle. A skull for death, of course. Not poetic death, just the practical kind that happens when knives meet skin. 2 bones crossed beneath it, because symmetry looks confident. Sometimes an hourglass appears, painted with tar and ash, a reminder that time runs out for everyone eventually. Others add a spear, or a bleeding heart, or a sword raised high. Each captain chooses what story to tell, mercy delayed or mercy denied. The meanings vary, but the message never changes. You're running out of time. Gristle, the ship's doctor, once said the flag was the only honest thing they owned. It doesn't lie, he muttered. Everything else here does. You believed him. The captain treats it like scripture. When it's raised, voices drop. Men stand, straighter. Even the sea seems to listen. It's strange. A piece of cloth commanding more obedience than any man on board. The black flag means negotiation, though that word feels misplaced. It says surrender, and will consider kindness. It's the colour of warning, of smoke before fire. The red flag means something else entirely, where no mercy, no survivors. Red is for when patience is drowned. They don't raise it often. When they do, even the crew looks away. It flaps above the deck like a heartbeat that's stopped caring. You help mend it once, under the quartermaster's watchful eye. The thread is thick, greasy with tar to keep it from rotting. The needle bites your fingers as you work. He tells you to stitch steady, not too fast, not too tight. It needs to move, he says. Fear doesn't work if it looks forced. You almost laugh at that, but you don't. He's right. Everything about this flag is performance, but a deadly one. It's the kind of theatre where applause comes in screams. As the day stretches on, the wind grows stronger, and the flag cracks like thunder overhead. The sound follows you through every task, every breath. It seeps into the rhythm of the ship. Flap, groan, splash, sigh. The ocean doesn't care what it means, but you do. You start to realise that the flag isn't just a signal to others, it's a mirror for the men below it. They wear the same colours now, skin burned brown, eyes dark from sleeplessness, hearts painted in shades of red and black. You sail under the symbol, and you become it. Sometimes, at night, when the lanterns dim and the flag is just a shape against the stars, you wonder who first thought of it. Who decided that fear could be stitched, folded, and hoisted into the wind? Maybe it wasn't genius. Maybe it was exhaustion. Someone too tired to keep shouting. A flag does the shouting for you. After all, it never loses its voice. The captain once told a story about another crew who copied his design. They raised a flag so similar that merchants started surrendering to them without a fight. He didn't mind. "Fear's a shared resource," he said. "We only charge for delivery." Then he laughed quietly, the way men laugh when they remember something worth regretting. "You didn't ask what happened to that other crew, but the ocean probably knows. At sunset, the sky turns the same colour as dried blood. The flag glows darkly in the fading light, its edges frayed and proud. You stand near the rail, watching it ripple. The sound of the sea softens, as if even the waves are waiting for the next command. You think of the ships out there, merchant vessels, navy patrols, all scanning the horizon for this exact shadow. Somewhere, a lookout might spot that black square and freeze, heart stuttering, hands slipping from the wheel. That's the power of it. The fear happens long before the battle does. Later, as darkness falls, you hear a sailor whispering a prayer. It's not to God, but to the flag itself. "Let it scare them first," he says, "so we don't have to bleed so much." You understand. Every stitch of that cloth is meant to buy time. One heartbeat, one hesitation, one surrender before the first cannon fires. In a way, the flag saves lives, just not the ones it's meant to. The wind changes direction. The flag twists, then snaps straight again, catching the lantern light for a moment. You see the skull glimmer like a face half remembered, grinning, tired, inevitable. It doesn't frighten you anymore. You've lived beneath it too long. It's no longer a threat, just an emblem of belonging. You realise that's the real trick. The flag terrifies everyone except the men who raise it. For them, it's comfort. It means purpose, even if that purpose smells of smoke and screams. The captain passes behind you, eyes on the horizon. He nods toward the flag. "That's our reputation," he says quietly. "You keep that clean, and the rest can rot." You think he means it as humour, but he doesn't laugh. He walks away, boots thudding softly on the deck, leaving the words behind like footprints you can't wash away. Later, lying in your hammock, you can still hear it. That endless flapping above, the ship's heartbeat made visible. The sound is oddly soothing, like rain that refuses to fall. You drift towards sleep, imagining the flag moving in the dark, breathing with the sea, whispering its one, unchanging sermon. Time's up, and you understand something quietly profound. Even death out here has branding. At dawn, the horizon looks peaceful, which is of course the trap. The ocean wears calmness like a disguise. The air is cool, the waves small, the flag above you hanging still in the wind. It's the kind of morning that almost feels innocent, until the lookout calls from the mast. His voice slices through the quiet like a blade. "Sail to the east!" Every man stops. Tools freeze mid-motion, spoons hang halfway to mouths. Even the wind seems to pause, waiting. The captain steps forward, squinting toward the rising sun. There, on the pale line between water and light, a dark shape drifts. Another ship. Merchant, most likely. Fat with cargo, slow with confidence. The kind of target the sea seems to offer as apology for everything else. The captain smiles, small, precise, like someone remembering a private joke. "All hands," he says quietly. The words roll through the ship faster than any shout could. In moments, the deck becomes a storm of movement. Sails are unfurled, ropes pulled taut, cannon ports opened like hungry mouths. The calm vanishes. The air fills with tension, the invisible kind that hums inside your chest. You're told to load powder. The barrels smell sharp, like burnt metal and rain. Your hands shake as you pour the charge, tamp it down, and ram the ball home. The sound is heavy, final. Every motion repeats down the line, a rhythm older than the ship itself. Somewhere below, Gristle checks his instruments, knives, rum, bandages. He doesn't look nervous. He never does. The quartermaster walks the deck, shouting reminders that sound more like threats. No waste, no panic, no mercy. You repeat them silently as if they're a prayer. The sky brightens and the wind begins to rise, soft at first, then stronger, pushing the ship forward. The target grows larger. You can see her sails now, white, clean, hopeful. She hasn't noticed you yet. You almost pity her. The captain orders the black flag raised. The crew watches as it unfurls, the skull grinning at the world again. It flaps hard in the wind, a sound like distant thunder. The message travels faster than your ship ever could. Surrender, or face what comes next. Through the spyglass, you see confusion on the other deck. Tiny figures pointing, arguing, scrambling. The flag has spoken. The ritual has begun. For a moment, there's quiet. Just the hiss of wind through the rigging, the creak of the hull, the heavy breathing of men waiting to earn or lose everything. Then the first cannon fires. The sound is not a crack, but a roar. A single, endless growl that shakes the air apart. Smoke bursts outward, white and thick, swallowing sight and sound. The deck trembles beneath your feet, and your heart joins the rhythm, pounding hard enough to feel the echo in your teeth. The recoil throws you back, and the gunner beside you laughs, half mad with adrenaline. "Good start," he says. You can't hear him over the ringing in your ears, but you nod anyway. Return fire follows, weaker, less practiced. The merchant ship is fighting, which makes this worse. A cannonball slams into your hull, splinters exploding like sharp rain. A man beside you falls. His leg is gone, but he doesn't scream. Gristle appears as if summoned, calm amid the chaos, dragging him aside. You keep loading. There's no room for pity when the sea demands performance. The second volley hits truer. You hear cheers, then shouts, then the order. "Board her!" Grappling hooks fly through the air, ropes arching between ships. The distance between life and death shrinks to a single leap. Men swing across, roaring like storm wind. You follow, mostly because stopping feels worse. The other deck is chaos, smoke, shouting, the thud of boots and steel. The smell is thick, sulphur, sweat, and something metallic you'd rather not name. You move through it like a dream, your ears filled with sound and your eyes full of movement. Someone falls, someone cheers, someone calls for surrender. A man with a cutlass swings at you. You duck by accident and trip him. The crowd swallows him before you can feel heroic. Victory, out here, happens by clumsiness as often as courage. The captain crosses last, calm and deliberate. He walks through the wreck like a man inspecting his own home. "Take the stores," he says. "Leave the dead. It's not cruelty. It's efficiency." The crew moves fast, looting barrels, crates, anything that might be traded or drunk. The air fills with the sound of cracking wood, spilling sugar and hurried footsteps. Someone finds a chest of coins and shouts in triumph. The others laugh, already dividing what they don't have yet. You stand at the rail, looking back at your own ship. Smoke drifts around her like fog. The flag still waves, proud and indifferent. You realise how strange it is to see something so beautiful amid so much ruin. The sea sparkles, the wind hums. If someone saw this from far away, they might think it looked peaceful. When the looting ends, the captain gives one last order. "Set her adrift." The captured ship, stripped of everything valuable, drifts slowly away, its sails shredded, its deck silent. A few survivors cling to the rail, staring. The captain watches them for a moment, then nods once. "They'll live," he says, though he doesn't sound convinced. "Long enough to tell the story." The men cheer as if the story itself is the treasure. You don't join them. You watch the other ship disappear into the horizon, a scar on the sea that will fade by morning. The smell of gunpowder lingers, sharp and sweet, the perfume of victory and exhaustion. Back on deck, Cookie serves watered rum. It burns like forgiveness. The men toast the captain, the flag, and themselves. "Victory," someone says, raising his cup, and all it cost was everything. Everyone laughs. It's easier than counting the missing. As night falls, the ship creaks with a different sound. Satisfaction. The air cools and the smoke thins. You sit by the rail, sipping the last of the rum, watching sparks drift from a lantern into the dark. They rise briefly, bright and foolish, then vanish. That's what victory looks like here. Light swallowed by wind. You touch the wooden rail and feel it still trembling from the battle, a heartbeat that hasn't calmed yet. You lick your lips and taste metal, salt and smoke. The old sailor beside you smiles, showing a gap where a tooth used to be. Victory, he says, tastes like rust. He's right. You swallow anyway. The sea is quiet again. It always is, eventually. It waits, patient as ever, pretending it doesn't already know how the next raid will end. Morning comes with the smell of victory, which turns out to be mostly smoke and sweat. The deck is quiet except for the soft scrape of brooms pushing away the remains of yesterday's glory, gunpowder grit, splinters, and the occasional piece of someone's bad luck. The sea looks indifferent, as it always does after human noise fades. It has seen all of this before. The crew gathers around the mainmast. A pile of spoils sits in the centre, like an altar. Barrels of sugar, sacks of tobacco, crates of rum, and a chest full of coins that glint dully in the light. They look smaller than you expected, these treasures. You thought wealth would shine brighter. Instead, it just sits there, quiet and sticky with salt. The quartermaster stands beside it with his ledger, a book thick with stains and optimism. He opens it carefully, as if afraid it might disintegrate. "Gentlemen, again," he says, "it's payday." No one cheers. Everyone knows the ritual. Excitement first, disappointment later. He begins reading names, calling them out one by one, assigning shares based on rank. The captain gets 2 portions, the quartermaster 1.5, and the rest divided equally among the crew. Equal, at least on paper. The logic feels sound until you realise how many hands the rum barrels pass through before they reach you. When it's your turn, he drops a small handful of coins into your palm. They clink faintly. Not the roar of fortune you'd hoped for, more like an afterthought. You turn them over in the light. One is French, one Spanish, one so worn it could have belonged to anyone. The edges are smooth, the face is fading. They look tired too. A man beside you laughs softly. "You can buy a night on land," he says, "if the night's not picky." You smile, because that's the custom. The joke is older than the ship. Meanwhile, Cookie is counting barrels of sugar, muttering numbers no one checks. The sweetness leaks through the wood, mixing with the salt air until everything smells faintly of candy and decay. The deck feels sticky beneath your boots, as if the ocean itself is jealous. The tobacco's packed into sacks, heavy and fragrant, already promised to some merchant who'll pretend not to know where it came from. You overhear the quartermaster explaining how the division works. It's not complicated, just brutal. Half the loot goes to the crew, the rest to repair the ship, buy powder, and bribe whoever needs bribing at the next port. You can almost hear the coins evaporating before they are even spent. The arithmetic of survival is never kind. Later, as the sun climbs, the captain inspects the hall. He moves slowly, nodding, touching each crate as though blessing it. "Not gold," he says, "but it keeps us alive." The crew nods in return. No one came here expecting gold. They came expecting stories, and those are cheaper to earn. By midday, the heat turns the air thick. The barrels of rum sweat under the sun. Someone opens one and pours around. The first sip burns like sunlight. You drink slowly, letting it melt into calm. Around you, the laughter grows louder. The sound of wealth, such as it is, always tastes of alcohol. Gristle appears from below, rubbing his hands with a rag that looks worse every day. "Any medical pay?" he asks. The quartermaster tosses him a single coin. "You're priceless," he says, but not in a good way. The doctor grins and pockets it without argument. The counting continues into the evening. Lanterns swing above, casting light across faces half hidden by shadows. The coins clink in uneven, rhythm, the lullaby of commerce. Someone hums a tune, a slow sailor's song about a woman who waited by the shore. It's always about someone waiting by a shore. The melody drifts over the deck, softening the edges of greed. When the last coin is counted, the men cheer out of obligation. The captain raises his cup. To luck, he says, and to keeping it a little longer. They drink together. Some shout, some sing. Some stare at their hands as if trying to memorize the weight of what they've earned. The rum burns, the air cools, the night forgets to care. You sit apart, rolling one of your coins between your fingers. It catches the lantern light and flashes briefly, like a promise you don't believe. You think about how much noise it took to make that one small piece of metal yours. The shouting, the smoke, the blood, the fear. You wonder if it was worth it. You decide not to answer. As the celebration fades, you help Cookie stack the remaining barrels. The deck smells like sugar and sweat. The sweetness almost cruel after so much salt. He wipes his brow and says, "They risked everything for the world's stickiest currency." You laugh quietly. It's true. Molasses and blood. Both hard to wash off. Later, when most of the crew has stumbled off to sleep, you walk to the rail. The moonlight turns the sea into silver glass. The waves lap softly, pretending to be harmless. In the distance, the faint glow of the abandoned merchant ship still burns, drifting on its own, a dying lantern on the horizon. You imagine the survivors counting their losses, their fear, their luck. Different arithmetic, same results. You drop one of your coins into the water. It sinks without ceremony, swallowed instantly. The ripples vanish before you can blink. You stand there for a while, staring into the dark. The coin was meant to buy silence ashore, a night without memory. Instead, it bought you a brief moment of honesty, the realization that fortune here isn't measured in metal, but in minutes. Every quiet breath between storms is profit enough. When you finally turn back toward the deck, you can hear faint snoring, the gentle shuffle of the ship's ropes, the soft heartbeat of waves. It almost feels peaceful, almost. You lie down in your hammock, still smelling of smoke and sugar, and close your eyes. Sleep arrives slowly, but it does arrive. In your dream, you're counting again, not coins, but breaths. Each one a share, each one borrowed. The ship is quiet again, too quiet. You can tell by how loudly everyone pretends not to listen. The waves still roll, the ropes still creak, but beneath the sound of water and wood, another rhythm has begun, the whispering kind. It starts with small things. Someone's portion of rum goes missing. Someone swears they saw a knife where a knife shouldn't be. Someone laughs too loudly at the wrong joke. Out here, trust doesn't vanish all at once. It erodes, grain by grain, like the paint on the hull. The sea takes patience, and so does suspicion. At first, you think it's just nerves. The last raid left everyone rich in coin, but poor in calm. Men who once sang together now count their cups and sleep with hands near their belts. Even Cookie has stopped humming. When you ask him why, he says, "Music sounds too cheerful when someone's planning something." You don't ask who, you already know better. The first rumour arrives like a rat, small, fast, and impossible to kill. Someone says the captain keeps an extra share hidden in his cabin. Someone else swears they saw the quartermaster talking to the navy in a port long ago. A few men whisper about the black flag, how its meaning might be cursed, how the sea's gone quieter since they raised it last. Every story overlaps another, forming a net of fear. No one can tell where it started, and no one wants to be caught in it. You start noticing how people watch each other now. A glance lasts too long. A nod feels rehearsed. The air below deck is thick with sweat and secrets. Even the candlelight seems to flicker differently, slower, suspicious. One night, you catch two men whispering behind the barrels. You can't hear the words, only the rhythm, soft, deliberate, dangerous. When they see you, they stop immediately, smiling too politely. One of them pats your shoulder. "Just talking about supplies," he says. You nod and walk away, pretending not to feel the knife resting at his hip. By morning, the mood has changed completely. The laughter from the night before is gone. Men work in silence, heads down, shoulders stiff. When the captain gives orders, the responses come slower. He notices, of course. He always does. At noon, he gathers everyone on deck. He doesn't shout. He never does. His voice is quiet, tired, almost kind. "I know what you've been saying," he begins. "I hear it too." He lets the words hang for a moment, like smoke that won't drift. You think someone's stealing, someone's lying, someone's plotting. Maybe you're right, but remember this: the sea's already waiting to kill you. Don't savour the trouble. For a heartbeat, everyone stands still. Then the quartermaster steps forward. "We can settle this," he says. "Truth by agreement, the same way we always have." He means a vote, the pirate's favourite weapon after rum. The crew forms a circle. Each man speaks his suspicion. Each man denies it in turn. It's not about finding truth. It's about reminding everyone how easily it disappears. When your turn comes, you say nothing. Silence, you decide, is safer than honesty. Afterward, the captain nods. "Good," he says. "Now it's settled." Of course, it isn't. Nothing ever is. That night, the storm inside the ship continues. The whispers get sharper, closer. Someone carves a mark into the mast, a small X, and no one admits to it. Someone's hammock is found cut halfway, through, ready to collapse. A knife goes missing, then reappears under the wrong pillow. By dawn, the paranoia feels like another passenger. You find yourself counting breaths instead of hours, listening for footsteps, for quiet. The ship groans with every wave, and each creak sounds like someone moving where they shouldn't. You can't sleep. You're not sure anyone does anymore. At supper, the silence grows heavier. No jokes, no stories, only the dull scrape of spoons on metal bowls. When Cookie sets a pot of stew down, no one reaches for it first. He sighs and mutters, "You'd think poison cost extra." Then, without warning, a voice speaks. Low, hard, certain. We all know who it is. The man stands, eyes fixed on the quartermaster. The room freezes. He's been keeping more than his share, seen it myself. The accused doesn't move for a long time. Then he laughs. A short, sharp sound that doesn't reach his eyes. "If I had extra," he says, "I'd have bought better company." Someone else rises. Then another. Words turn to shouts, shouts to threats, and suddenly every hand knows exactly where the nearest weapon is. The captain steps in fast, pulling his pistol but not pointing it. "Enough," he says. The word lands like a cannon shot. "Sit down before the sea does it for you." The silence that follows feels deeper than any storm. Slowly they obey. The captain lowers the pistol. "Tomorrow," he says, "we search everything. Every cabin, every crate, every pocket. Anyone hiding something will answer to me." When the crowd disperses, no one talks. You return to your hammock, but the air feels different now. Charged, like lightning waiting for a reason. Someone has lit a fuse. No one knows where it leads. You lie awake, staring at the ceiling. Above you, the wood creaks softly. Below, the water knocks against the hull, steady and patient. You think of how the sea keeps secrets. Quiet, endless, undisturbed. Maybe it's jealous when humans try to imitate her. By dawn, the search begins. Every trunk opened, every scrap of fabric turned over. They find nothing. No extra coin, no hidden stash, no proof of betrayal. Which only makes things worse. If guilt has no name, everyone must carry it. Later, as the sun climbs, the ship sails on, pretending the world is normal. Men return to their duties, but no one looks anyone else in the eye. The wind hums through the rigging, low and constant, like a warning sung in another language. You realise that fear doesn't need an enemy. It grows best in the spaces between questions. On this ship, trust is thinner than a dry sock, and about as rare. When night returns, the whispers do too. You close your eyes and try not to listen. The sea rocks you gently, like a lyre soothing a child. Somewhere in the dark you hear laughter, or maybe the wind, and it sounds far too human to trust. Days pass without shape or meaning. Time loses its corners, rubbed smooth by repetition. The sun rises, the sun falls, and everything in between feels the same. The crew still works, still eats, still breathes, but there's a slowness now, a kind of drifting in their eyes. You can sense it in yourself too. The sea is not just outside the ship anymore. It's inside, somewhere beneath the ribs, whispering. The wind has stopped playing fair. It arrives and leaves without reason, as if it too is bored. When it blows, it howls like memory. When it sleeps, the silence hums louder than any storm. The sails sag, the ropes hang limp. Each creak of the hull sounds tired, like a voice repeating an old story for no one in particular. You start to wonder if the ship is alive, if it breathes along with the crew, if it dreams. Sleep is rare now. The hammocks sway endlessly, even when the sea is calm. You close your eyes and still feel movement, a slow rocking that never stops, even when you stand. Dreams bleed into waking. Sometimes you forget where you are until the smell of salt reminds you. It's not unpleasant anymore, that smell. It's just part of you. One morning, if it was morning, a sailor named Webb begins talking to himself. At first it's quiet, like he's rehearsing thoughts. Then louder, words tumbling into air without punctuation. He tells the sea stories about his wife, about a house that probably never existed, about a dog that might have. The others laugh softly but not cruelly. Everyone understands. You're never truly alone out here. The mind finds someone to talk to, even if it has to invent them. By midday, Webb begins to laugh at nothing. Then he listens, nods, and replies to whatever it is that laughs back. When the captain hears, he doesn't intervene. He's seen it before. The ocean collects minds first, bodies come later. You try to ignore it. You polish a cannon that will never be fired, coil ropes that don't need coiling. Anything to keep your hands busy, your thoughts still. But the sea doesn't like silence. It fills it for you. Sometimes, when you stare too long at the horizon, you think you see faces in the waves, pale shapes, too symmetrical to be foam. They vanish when you blink, but the impression stays. You tell yourself it's sunlight, reflection, fatigue. But the part of you that's been listening to the ship knows better. At night, the line between real and imagined wears thinner. You wake from dreams of water rising, only to find your feet still dry. Once, you hear someone whisper your name near your ear. You sit up fast, but no one's there. The air feels warm where the voice had been. You decide not to mention it to anyone. They already have enough ghosts. The next evening, the wind changes again, sudden and wild. The ship lurches as if startled from a nightmare. The flag snaps hard, ropes groan, and a loose barrel rolls across the deck with a hollow thud. The rain begins not as drops but as sheets, thick and endless. You rush to secure. The lines, the water soaking through every layer of cloth, every illusion of comfort. Lightning splits the sky into brief truths, faces strained, hands gripping, eyes wide. Thunder follows like an argument with no winner. In the chaos, Webb climbs the rigging laughing. He shouts something you can't hear over the wind, something that sounds like joy. Someone yells for him to come down. He doesn't. He reaches the top, arms wide, laughing into the storm. For one long heartbeat, he looks free. Then the wind decides otherwise. He's gone before the next flash of light. The sea takes him quietly, without splash or struggle. Just gone. When the storm passes, the world smells of iron and rain. The deck glistens, reflecting the weak grey light of dawn. The captain stands near the rail, looking down into the water. The sea's patient, he says softly. It waits until you stop fighting back. No one replies. There's nothing to say. The next days are worse, though not louder. Men speak less. The horizon stays stubbornly empty. You count waves until they blur. Sometimes you think you hear voices in the wind, calling names that don't belong to anyone alive. Cookie claims he saw Webb walking on deck last night, his boots dripping but his eyes dry. Gristle tells him to sleep more. Cookie says sleep is where Webb lives now. You start to understand what he means. Every dream feels heavier, thicker. When you wake, it takes a few moments to remember that breathing is necessary. You watch the others, their faces hollowed by fatigue, their movements slowed by thought. The sea has started to eat them, not with teeth, but with time. One evening, the captain orders a small ceremony for the men they've lost. No speeches, no prayers, just silence. The crew gathers on deck, lanterns flickering, the lights swaying like tired halos. The flag hangs limp above. Someone drops a bottle of rum into the water, and for a moment you all watch it float. Then it tips, fills, and sinks. The ripples fade fast. The sea accepts the offering without acknowledgement. Afterward you sit alone by the rail. The sky's clear again, littered with stars, sharp and cold. You can see the reflection of the flag on the water's surface, a shadow waving to itself. You wonder if Webb is somewhere down there, still laughing. You imagine him sitting at the bottom, chatting with the fish, waiting for company. The thought doesn't frighten you. It feels almost polite. Sleep finds you on deck, leaning against the wood. You dream of the sea as a person, ancient and amused, watching from beneath the surface. It doesn't speak. It doesn't need to. It just listens. You wake before dawn, the taste of salt on your lips, your clothes stiff with dried water. The wind is calm again, as if nothing ever happened. Below deck, someone hums an old song. You can't tell if it's meant to comfort or summon something. The air smells faintly of mildew and wet rope. You lie in your hammock, staring at the beams overhead. The wood moves gently, groaning in rhythm with the waves. For a moment you think you hear a heartbeat in the sound. Not yours, not the ship's, but something larger, slower, endless. Maybe the ocean has one after all. You close your eyes, letting the sound pull you towards sleep. The sea rocks you the way it rocks everything, with indifference that feels almost kind. Before you drift away, one thought surfaces, quiet and certain. The sea eats the person before the body, and maybe that's mercy. The first sight of land always looks like forgiveness. After weeks of grey water and grey sky, even the faintest outline of a coast feels like a promise the world remembered to keep. Someone shouts from the mast, pointing toward a strip of green on the horizon. The men rush to the rail as if it were salvation itself. You watch their faces change. Exhaustion melting into hunger. Hunger melting into something dangerous. Land means air that doesn't taste of salt. It means rum that doesn't come from a barrel that smells like paint. It means, briefly, pretending to be human again. The captain calls it shore leave, but he says the words like an apology. 2 days, he warns, no more, and don't make me read about you later. Everyone laughs, because that's easier than agreeing. The ship drops anchor just off the coast of Nassau, a place sailors describe as paradise if they've never actually been there. From a distance, it looks perfect. Palm trees, sunlight, roofs that shine like new copper. Up close, it smells like sweat, rotting fruit, and regret. You walk down the gangplank with the others, blinking against the brightness. The sand feels strange under your boots. Too still, too dry, too clean. It It takes you a moment to remember how to stand without swaying. The port hums with sound, shouts, drums, laughter that sounds like a threat. You pass vendors selling fruit crawling with flies, barrels of pickled fish, and bottles of rum in every colour but clear. The tavern closest to the dock is called the Drunken Gull, though the sign has lost half its paint and most of its letters. Inside, the floor is sand, the roof leaks, and the walls have given up pretending to stand straight. But it has music, and that's enough. The first fiddle note rises, crooked and lovely, and the men cheer like children finding their mothers. Rum flows faster than sense. The air grows thick with smoke and song. You find yourself seated between a man crying about a lost dog and another insisting he once punched a shark. Both stories end the same way, badly. The drink burns down your throat sharp as sunlight, and suddenly the whole world feels softer, slower, less cruel. For a few moments, you can almost forget the endless motion of the sea. Then someone throws a chair. It's never clear who starts it. A misunderstanding about money, a laugh held too long, or maybe just the universe reminding everyone that peace is unnatural. The room explodes into movement, shouting, fists, the dull thud of bodies meeting wood. You duck instinctively as a bottle sails past your head and shatters against the wall. Someone lands in your lap, apologises and keeps swinging. Cookie appears from nowhere, wielding a ladle like a sword, yelling something about saving the rum before it spills. The old sailor with the rope beard laughs until he's punched. The fiddler never stops playing, as if music itself might survive this. You watch the chaos unfold with detached amusement. It looks almost choreographed. Civilization performing its favourite ritual, self-destruction. The captain arrives eventually, of course. He doesn't raise his voice. He just stands in the doorway watching. The room quiets by instinct. Even drunk, the men know better. "Enjoying your holiday?" he asks, tone perfectly calm. No one answers. "Good," he says. "Then let's leave before the place burns." Outside, the night air tastes cleaner, but only because the tavern now smells of smoke. The men stumble toward the boats, singing badly. You help Cookie, who's still clutching his ladle like a trophy. Behind you, the port glows faintly orange, a small fire spreading fast. You don't look back again. The next morning, the ship feels heavier, though no one says why. A few men are missing. No one knows where they went or if they'll find their way back. The captain doesn't send search parties. He just orders the anchor raised and the sails trimmed. If they wanted the sea, he says, they'll find it eventually. The water sparkles as the shore fades. You stand at the rail, watching the island shrink into a memory. For all its noise and promise, it doesn't look much different from any other place. Just another patch of dirt waiting to drown. Cookie joins you, sipping something that smells like regret. "Land," he says, shaking his head. "Too many rules, not enough space." He's right, of course. On land, every action echoes. People remember, record and complain. The sea forgets. The sea forgives faster. Out here, mistakes sink quietly and stay gone. That's why sailors always come back, no matter how much they curse it. The land promises comfort, but comfort has walls. The ocean has none. By noon, the coastline has vanished. The men are quieter now, nursing hangovers and bruises. Some look ashamed, some proud, most simply empty. You can smell the rum still sweating out of their skin. The ship moves slower, as if reluctant to return to its routine. You climb to the forecastle, where the captain stands alone, staring at the horizon. His coat flaps in the wind, still smelling faintly of smoke. You ask him why he lets the crew go ashore when he knows what happens every time. He doesn't look at you when he answers. Men need to remember what they're running from, he says. Otherwise they forget why they're here. Below deck, the hammocks swing again, the same as before. The sea hums softly against the hull, a low, forgiving sound. You stretch out and close your eyes, the memory of sand still faintly between your toes. Civilization, you realise, isn't built on land or sea. It's built on the stories men tell to convince themselves they belong somewhere. You dream of the tavern again, the noise, the laughter, the music that kept playing through the fight. In your dream, the fire never spreads. The chairs don't break. Everyone just drinks until they start singing the same song, off-key but united. You wake smiling, then smell the air, salt, tar, rum. The sea has claimed you back, as it always does. Outside, the horizon stretches clean and endless. The island is gone, the fire forgotten, the lesson repeated. You look toward the captain, who's still watching the waves. He doesn't notice you. He's listening to the sea, waiting for it to whisper something only he can hear. Maybe it's a warning, maybe it's laughter. Out here it's hard to tell the difference. And as the ship drifts farther from shore, you understand what he meant. Land is just another storm, only louder. The sea may never offer peace, but at least it keeps its promises. You've seen the ship's men mark everything else. Crates, barrels, ledgers, even time itself with scratches in the wood. So, of course, they eventually start marking themselves. The skin becomes the only page that can't be lost to the sea. Every line, every drop of ink is both memory and insurance. The first time you notice it, the air smells of tar and sweat, and the deck is still damp from rain. A man sits shirtless near the mast, back bent, while another leans close with a needle wrapped in twine. The needle dips into a cup of soot mixed with a rum. Then it begins. Tiny dots, patient and deliberate, the kind of pain chosen instead of earned. The man doesn't flinch. His jaw clenches once, then relaxes. He's done this before. Most of them have. They call them marks of luck, but luck has never been the right word. You watch as an anchor takes shape, then a small bird beside it. For return, the tattooer explains without looking up. Anchors keep you steady, birds bring you home. You ask if it works. He shrugs. Sometimes. Then he smiles. If not, at least it's waterproof. Others have crosses, daggers, or names of people they've already outlived. Some carry Latin phrases they can't pronounce. A few choose things no one can interpret. Stars, numbers, crude sketches of hearts, ships, or hands. Gristle, the ship's doctor, has a line of small dots running down his arm like a trail of forgotten nights. When you ask what they mean, he says, one for each man who lived when he shouldn't have. You notice he's left enough room for more. A younger sailor shows you his chest, proud of the words inked there. No grave, but the deep. The letters are shaky, uneven, but the pride is steady. Keeps me afloat, he says, or at least reminds me I can't sink twice. You don't know what to say to that, so you just nod. Out here, humour and wisdom sound the same. Not all faith comes in ink. Some wear charms, bits of rope tied 3 times, coins drilled and hung on string, fragments of shells, or bones carved into shapes that mean something only to the one wearing them. Cookie keeps a tiny glass bead in his pocket. He says it belonged to a woman who once promised to wait. When you ask if she did, he smiles. She promised, he says. That's the part that mattered. The captain wears no charms and no marks. I've made enough contracts, he says when asked. But you've seen him touch the rail twice before every battle, once before every meal, and once more before sleeping. Habit is just superstition with better manners. At night the deck becomes a quiet church. Men whisper their own liturgies, muttered psalms, fragments of songs, promises spoken to no one in particular. They aren't prayers in the formal sense, they're bargains. If the wind holds, one man murmurs, I'll never curse again. The next morning, when the wind fails, he curses anyway. The sea, it seems, honours sincerity more than success. There's a story told among the crew about a man who tattooed a compass on his chest. Every time he drank, the ink would seem to blur, the lines shifting, pointing him back toward the ship no matter how far he wandered. When he finally drowned, as all sea stories end, They said his body floated face up, the compass pointing straight toward home. Whether it's true or not doesn't matter. Truth, like the sea, is something these men prefer in waves. Sometimes real, sometimes imagined. You start to notice your own rituals forming. You knock the same number of times before climbing the ladder. You avoid whistling during storms. You trace the edge of your sleeve when the flag rises, though you can't remember why. Belief doesn't ask for reasons. It just waits patiently until one appears. The smell of ink lingers long after the tattooer packs away his tools. It mingles with the scent of salt, oil, and men. You think about how strange it is, this attempt to control fate by bleeding on purpose. But maybe that's the point. You can't choose how the sea kills you, but you can choose what's written on you when it does. One evening you find the tattooer alone, repairing his needles. You ask if he ever inks himself. He nods. Then he rolls up his sleeve and shows you a single word carved into the crook of his arm. Home. The letters are faded, swallowed by years of sun. Where's that, you ask? He studies the horizon. Still looking, he says. As darkness deepens, the men gather to compare their marks. Each tells a story, half truth, half performance. One shows a mermaid, another a devil. A third swears his heart tattoo bleeds when he lies, though he's never tested it. Laughter ripples through the group, soft and genuine. For once, the superstition feels harmless. It's not about control anymore, it's about belonging. The stars shimmer faintly above, like scattered ash. Someone claims that sailors' souls become stars when they die, guiding the rest home. Another says that's nonsense, the sky's too crowded already. Still, everyone looks up for a moment longer than necessary, just in case. Later, as you lie in your hammock, the wood creaking gently beneath you, you trace the ghost of an idea along your wrist. The thought of a mark that means nothing and everything. Maybe tomorrow you'll ask for one. Not because you believe it will save you, but because everyone here has already been rewritten by the sea. It feels polite to make it official. You think of the ink, the sting, the permanence, of how belief leaves traces you can't wash off. Maybe that's the truest kind of faith. Not the kind that saves you, but the kind that stays. Outside, the wind hums a tune only the waves understand. Somewhere below deck, someone whispers another promise into the dark. You can't hear the words, but you already know how it ends, quietly, like all prayers at sea. And as sleep begins to pull you under, you realise that faith and ink share the same nature. Both sink deep, both stain permanently, and both, if nothing else, make the waiting easier. Night falls like a slow confession. The deck glows faintly in the moonlight, silver lines tracing every rope, every scar, every edge of wood worn smooth by years of hands that no longer exist. You sit near the bow, where the air feels cleaner, almost kind. Above you, the sky spreads wide, too wide, and the stars look scattered, as if someone dropped a handful of coins across a dark table and never bothered to pick them up. The ship moves softly, more glide than motion. The sound of water brushing against the hull is rhythmic, steady, almost like breathing. Around you, the men settle into their evening patterns. One prays, one drinks, one swears at both. They're often the same man. The Bible sits on the table near the galley, bound in cracked leather, swollen from salt and time. The pages are warped, and most of the words have blurred into smudges. No one knows who it originally belonged to, probably a man long eaten by the sea, but everyone reads from it eventually. They take turns, not for meaning but for sound. It's the only book aboard that can be mistaken for hope. You watch as a sailor named Pike flips through the pages, squinting at the faded lines. And God saw the waters, he reads slowly, and said they were inconvenient. The crew laughs softly, he grins. Close enough. The laughter fades, but the feeling stays. Out here, even faith accepts improvisation. Others keep their religion in smaller pieces. One man mutters a psalm under his breath before each meal, though he never finishes it. Another crosses himself before sleeping, then immediately curses at the creaking above him. The contradictions don't bother anyone. The sea teaches flexibility. Out here, a man can pray, doubt, and drink in the same breath, and the ocean will forgive him, mostly because it isn't listening. Rum passes like communion. The bottle circles slowly through calloused hands, glinting in the lantern light. Each man takes a sip, makes a face, and passes it on. The ritual never changes, though the prayers between sips do. Some ask for calm seas, others for wind, others simply for another morning. You find yourself whispering something, too quiet to catch. You're not sure if it was a wish or an apology. Above, the stars shift as the ship drifts. They don't move quickly, they slide, patient and deliberate. The old sailor with the rope beard calls them the god's pocket change, scattered by carelessness, shining just enough to remind mortals they're broke. You laugh, quietly, but it lingers in your mind. Maybe that's what faith is now, cosmic forgetfulness disguised as comfort. The captain appears on deck later, his coat buttoned against the wind. He carries a small flask and stands near the rail looking up. "That one," he says, pointing at a bright star near the horizon. "They call it the mariner's hope." He takes a sip. "Though she's led more men into rocks than home," he smiles faintly. "Faith's funny that way." Gristle joins him, arms folded, smelling of smoke and something antiseptic. "You think the sky cares?" he asks. The captain shrugs. Caring's not part of its job. They stand together for a while, two tired silhouettes against eternity. You realise it's the most peaceful argument you've ever heard. Later, the crew gathers near the galley. Cookie has found an old hymn, or something pretending to be one. The words come in fragments, pieces of scripture spliced with sea shanties. The men sing off key but with conviction. "Oh Lord, let the waves be gentle," someone croons. Another adds, "and the rum stay strong." It's both ridiculous and sacred. No one laughs this time. You listen, the sound rolling softly through the night air. The ocean joins in with its own harmony, low, endless, ancient. You think of every church you've ever seen, then realise this ship, with its leaks and scars and flickering lamps, might be closer to heaven than any of them. It's certainly closer to judgment. When the song ends, there's a hush. No one claps. They just sit in the sound's echo, staring at the water. It's strange how silence feels heavier after beauty. Someone mutters a prayer for the dead, another for the living. No one can tell the difference anymore. You look down at your reflection in the water. The surface shivers, bending your face into something unrecognisable. Behind it, the stars ripple, distorted coins spinning in a black well. You think of all the men who've stared at the same reflection and wondered the same thing. What exactly are you believing in when you pray to something that never answers? The rum makes the thought softer, more philosophical than tragic. Maybe belief isn't about answers. Maybe it's about company, pretending someone's listening while you wait for the sea to make up its mind. When the bottle comes back to you, you take a sip. The liquid burns, warm and sharp. You feel it spread through your chest like borrowed fire. You imagine it lighting small candles inside you, each one a brief rebellion against the dark. The sky is clearer now. The stars feel closer. You can almost hear them, faint and crackling, like distant fire. Someone once said that sailors' souls become stars after they die. You don't believe it, but you look anyway. The thought is pleasant enough to keep. The captain eventually speaks again, voice low. "Every man on the ship has his own religion," he says. "Some keep it in a bottle, some keep it in their breath. Doesn't matter which, it's all the same prayer." He tips the flask once more and adds, "Just different punctuation." You smile, half drunk, half devotional. The truth out here isn't complicated. It's just blurred, like ink spread by rain. Redemption is theoretical. Rum is practical. The sea accepts both with the same patience. As the night deepens, the singing fades. One by one, the men drift off, their bodies swaying gently with the rhythm of the ship. The last lantern burns low, a tiny sun for a congregation that's already asleep. You lie back, feeling the boards hum beneath you. The stars remain, watching without judgment. Somewhere above them, maybe something else watches too. You decide not to care. The prayer you murmured earlier still lingers on your tongue, unfinished, unimportant. You close your eyes and feel the rum's warmth dull into calm. The ocean sighs beneath you, endless, forgiving, unbothered. Faith, you realize, doesn't need to be right. It only needs to be repetitive, like the waves, like breathing, like the quiet. And under that quiet you hear it, the slow rhythm of oars that don't exist, echoing faintly, like a heartbeat too large to belong to anything human. You let it carry you into sleep, certain that somewhere in the sky, a careless god has dropped another coin just for you. You first hear their names whispered during a night watch, half conversation, half superstition. Someone mentions Anne Bonny, someone else adds Mary Read. Then a third sailor, in the same reverent tone reserved for storms and ghosts, says, "They were worse than men." The others laugh, though quietly, because laughter always sounds nervous when the truth is bigger than the joke. The sea, it seems, remembers its women differently. Stories drift between ships like bottles, part message, part myth, part exaggeration. You learn that Anne Bonny wore pistols like jewellery and spoke, her mind with the precision of a knife, that Mary Red fought disguised as a man and didn't stop when they found out she wasn't one, that both survived battles where others begged for mercy and both cursed those who did. The details change every time someone tells it, but the essence never does. Competence mistaken for witchcraft, courage mistaken for curse. "Women bring bad luck," one sailor mutters, tapping the mast for protection. Cookie snorts without looking up from his pan. "Bad luck often steered better," he says. No one argues. They just shift uncomfortably, as if superstition itself might overhear. When you ask why the stories persist, the old sailor with the rope beard gives a small shrug. "Because the sea likes balance," he says. "For every fool who sailed drunk, there had to be someone smart enough to fix it." He wipes his hands on his coat and adds, "and smart enough to get blamed for it." You think about that as the night stretches on. The stars above blur slightly in the mist, glowing like faint candles in a cathedral no one built. Somewhere beneath that light, two women once ruled a deck. You picture them. Anne, quick and sharp-eyed, laughing at the men who underestimated her. Mary, calm, deliberate, fighting not to prove anything but simply to stay alive. They weren't supposed to exist, and yet they did. That alone makes them legends. By daylight, the conversations grow bolder. "They dressed like us," says one man, "fought like us, swore better than us." Another replies, "and died better too." The tone is half admiration, half envy. You realise the superstition about women bringing bad luck wasn't born of fear of failure. It was fear of replacement. If a woman could do what a man did, what excuse would a man have left? The captain never joins these talks. But once, when the wind dies and the ship sits still, he glances at the horizon and says quietly, "Anne Bonny was right." No one dares to ask right about what. He continues anyway. When they told her to beg forgiveness, she told them she'd only regret not killing more of them. He smiles faintly. That's conviction. Gristle, listening nearby, exhales through his nose. Conviction's just bravery with better marketing, but even he sounds impressed. You ask Cookie one evening if he ever met a woman at sea. He nods, stirring his pot. Met a few. Most had more sense than to stay. He tastes the stew, grimaces and adds, "The rest had more courage than sense." He points his spoon toward you. You'd be surprised how many ghosts on this ship wear skirts. Not that it stopped them from haunting. Superstition runs deeper than the bilge. Some men still won't let a woman's name be spoken during storms. Others carve small charms shaped like female figures from bone and hang them from the rigging for luck. The irony doesn't seem to bother anyone. Fear and worship often share the same altar. At night, when the deck is quiet and the flag barely stirs, you find yourself thinking of them again. You wonder if Anne or Mary ever stood exactly where you're standing now, staring at the same stretch of black water, wondering if freedom was worth its price. There's a strange comfort in imagining they did. You picture them laughing in defiance, their hands steady, their hearts tired but unbroken. Not saints, not devils, just survivors with better stories. The sea loves stories like theirs. It swallows most lives whole, but lets a few names float. You can feel it even now, how the water beneath the hull seems to hum with the weight of unspoken things. Somewhere down there, perhaps, lies a ship with no name, its timbers rotted, its secrets intact. Maybe they're still steering it, invisible and undefeated. You mentioned this idea to the old sailor. He smiles, eyes reflecting lantern light. Wouldn't surprise me, he says. The sea doesn't take everyone, it drowns. When you sleep that night, your dreams are full of voices, low, calm, confident. They don't sound like ghosts, they sound like reminders. In the dream, one of them says, "You keep waiting for freedom like it's land you can reach. It's not. It's the act of sailing at all." You wake before dawn, the words still ringing in your mind. Morning brings wind and work, as it always does, but the mood aboard feels different. The men move quieter, a little less certain, as if aware that someone else's shadow is still walking among them. When one of the younger sailors drops a rope, he mutters an apology into the air, not to anyone visible. You don't correct him. Some apologies are better left unanswered. Later, as the sun lowers and the horizon softens, you hear someone humming, a melody you don't recognize. It's slow, steady, and strangely confident. You follow the sound and find Cookie by the galley wiping his hands. "Old tune," he says. "They say Anne Bonny used to sing it before fights. Keeps the heart even." He hums another bar and smiles. No one ever said bad luck couldn't carry a tune. You stay there a while, listening to the faint music mixing with the wind. The notes blend into the creak of the ropes, the sigh of the sails, and the heartbeat of the ship. Somewhere between rhythm and rumour, you can almost believe they're still out there. The quiet queens steering invisible ships through water that still remembers their names. You look up at the sky, now streaked with fading gold, and think about how legends always outlive their truths. The sea doesn't care about gender or justice or myth. It only cares about motion, and anyone who keeps moving, in defiance of everything trying to stop them, earns its respect. You breathe in the salt air, sharp and cool, and smile. Maybe that's why their stories never sank. They were the sea's favourite kind, not tidy, not moral, but honest. As night settles, you whisper their names, once more softly like a spell. The wind carries them somewhere beyond hearing, and for the first time in a long time the ocean feels less lonely. The stories never stop. They just change uniforms. One generation's crime becomes the next generation's costume, and somewhere along the way the smell of blood turns into perfume. That's how pirates, real, dirty, sunburned, half-starved pirates, became heroes, even though no one who ever met one would have agreed. It started, as most bad ideas do, with a book. The pamphlets came first, quick, cheap, moralising tales printed for people who liked their sins safely fictionalised. The Confession of Captain Avery, The Bloody Life of Blackbeard, The Tragic End of the Red Sea Marauders. Each promised horror, but all secretly admired what they pretended to condemn. The writers couldn't resist it. The freedom, the audacity, the glamour of men who answered to no one but the wind. Then came the drawings. Pirates posed like saints with pistols instead of halos. Eyes fierce, boots polished, flags dramatically torn. It didn't matter that most of them probably smelled like damp rope and boiled meat. Ink cleans everything. By the time the 18th century was done with them, pirates were no longer people. They were symbols. Rebellion, freedom, adventure, everything civilized readers wanted without the dysentery. The myth grew quickly, like mould in a closed cabin, and the world, desperate for romance, kept feeding it. You can almost imagine the authors sitting in London parlours, quills scratching on parchment, inventing dialogue for men who couldn't read. They gave them morals, motives, even good teeth. They erased the hunger and disease and replaced them with swagger. They turned rationed rum into endless celebration, mutiny into democracy, and accidental survival into destiny. Some called it justice, giving pirates the dignity they never had. Others called it fiction. Both were right. The old sailor with the rope beard once told you, "Truth can't swim." You thought he was joking, but the longer you sail, the more you understand. Truth drowns quietly. Stories float. You think about Anne and Mary again, how their faces appear now in paintings. Romantic eyes, clean shirts, sunlight arranged tastefully across their shoulders. They look nothing like the people described by the men who actually met them. They look safe. That's how history forgives people, by making them attractive. When printing presses multiplied, so did the fantasies. Pirates began showing up everywhere, in penny novels, in children's tales, in ballads sung by people who never left the shore. They became metaphors, moral lessons, bedtime warnings, and sometimes, embarrassingly, fashion statements. A century later, they even reached theatres, where actors with powdered wigs and clean hands shouted about freedom under stage lights. You can't smell rum in a theatre, which helps the illusion immensely. And then, much later, the cameras arrived. The movies finished what the novel started. The pirate became a brand, charming, dangerous, perfectly unthreatening. The Jolly Roger turned from execution notice into merchandise. The world finally achieved what it had always wanted, rebellion you could buy. You can't blame them, really. Every age needs its rebels. When people grow too polite, they resurrect the ones who weren't. But they make them smile more, bleed less, and die in ways that test well with audiences. You remember watching a film once, long before you found yourself here. The pirate captain on screen gave a speech about freedom, dramatic, defiant, full of metaphors about the sea and destiny. The audience cheered. You did too. It's easier to love freedom when someone else is pretending to risk it. Now, standing on an actual deck, the planks sticky with salt and the air smelling of oil and fatigue, you realise how heavy the word really is. Freedom isn't a banner, it's a sentence with no punctuation, a story that never ends cleanly. The myths left that part out. The crew has its own opinions on these legends. One night, as you all sit near the galley, someone starts reciting lines from a popular play about pirates. It's absurdly romantic. Speeches about stars and loyalty and noble rogues of the sea. The men laugh until they cry. When the speech ends, Cookie wipes his eyes and says, "I wish I'd known I was noble. Would have eaten better." Gristle shakes his head. "We're not noble. We're what happens when luck gets bored." He takes a sip of rum. But at least the books make good company for the dead. The captain listens from the shadows, smiling faintly. "Let them have their stories," he says. "A lie's still useful if it teaches the right kind of envy." He looks toward the horizon, voice lowering. People like to imagine pirates free, makes the chains on land feel lighter. You think about that for a long time. Maybe that's what myths really do. Not glorify the past, but comfort the present. A clean lie for a dirty truth. A way to pretend rebellion is safe if you keep it on the page. The next morning, the wind changes. The sea looks brighter, as if approving the thought. You watch the waves roll past and they seem to whisper in rhythm. Stories, stories, stories. Every crest is another version, every trough an erasure. You realise the ocean has always been the best editor. It deletes what it can't romanticise. Later, you find a tattered pamphlet among the captain's maps. The cover shows a man with an improbable jawline and a sword held at a perfect angle. The title reads, "The Gallant Corsair of the Caribbean." You flip through it. The sentences are florid, the plot implausible. The captain laughs when he sees you reading. "They got one thing right," he says. "He dies at the end." You ask if he minds the myth. He shakes his head. No, the stories are lighter, easier to carry. The truth's too heavy to bring ashore. He closes the pamphlet gently and adds, "Besides, every man wants to live twice, once in flesh, once in fiction." That night, you watch the stars again, those scattered coins from careless gods. You imagine each one a pirate reborn, polished and perfected, telling a better story than they ever lived. The thought doesn't bother you. It's almost comforting to know that somewhere, in someone else's imagination, you're already a legend, already cleaned up, already forgiven. Maybe that's what freedom really is. Not living without rules, but being remembered without consequences. You lean against the rail, the sea breathing quietly beneath you, and feel the ship hum with its endless rhythm. Behind you, the crew laughs at another tall tale, louder this time, less bitter. Ahead, the horizon glows faintly gold, as if the sun itself were applauding. And somewhere between truth and imagination, you understand that the line never mattered. The myth was always the destination. The rest was just navigation. The sea is quiet today. Too quiet, as if it already knows what's coming and doesn't want to interrupt. The ship rocks gently on the tide near the mouth of the Thames, where the water turns the colour of ash. You can see the city ahead, London, a forest of masts, smoke and judgment. The air smells of coal and law. The captain stands near the rail, coat buttoned, hat pulled low. His face is unreadable. Around him, the crew works without speaking. There's no shouting, no singing, not even the usual swearing. Everyone knows this is the end of the voyage. Some because they'll be caught, others because they'll vanish before they can be. Either way, the sea has already collected its due. By dusk they come. Navy ships, clean, polished, impossibly organised. Their flags flutter politely, like invitations rather than threats. You can hear the sound of drums across the water, faint and certain. The captain watches them approach with a faint smile. "The Empire's punctual," he says. "Wouldn't want to disappoint." The arrest isn't dramatic. There are no last stands, no roaring speeches, just quiet compliance. The crew lowers the sails, the black flag is taken down and folded, not ripped, not burned, simply put away as if someone intends to reuse it. That feels crueler than destruction. The men are bound and taken ashore. The docks are crowded. Children sit on their fathers' shoulders, pointing. Vendors sell pies, oranges and pamphlets describing crimes not yet confessed. The city has turned justice into entertainment. You walk past the crowd and hear snippets of conversation. "That one slit 30 throats. That one burned a port. That one's the devil's cousin." None of it sounds like you, but you no longer know which stories are lies and which are memories. They march you through narrow streets that smell of soot and rain, to a building whose stones seem to hum with authority, the Old Bailey. Inside, everything echoes. Wooden benches creak under the weight of spectators. Judges wear wigs so white they look powdered with salt. You think, absurdly, that they resemble barnacles clinging to a rock. The trial is quick, the evidence thorough, the mercy non-existent. One by one, the names are read, followed by the same sentence spoken in different tones of boredom. To be hanged by the neck until dead. No one gasps, no one cries. The Empire runs on routine. Later in the cell you listen to the rain tapping on the small barred window. It sounds almost like the sea again, trying to find you. The men around you talk quietly, about home, about food, about nothing. Cookie hums a tune under his breath. Gristle sits with his back to the wall, sharpening a small piece of wood into something that might be a cross, or maybe just something to do with his hands. The captain speaks last. "They'll hang us at Wapping," he says. "By the water, tradition." He smiles faintly. The sea gets a front row seat. No one answers. There's nothing left to say that doesn't sound like repetition. At dawn, the guards arrive. They march you through streets still slick with dew. The gallows stand tall against the pale sky, a wooden reminder that the Empire values permanence. Ropes dangle, swaying slightly in the morning breeze. Tar drips from them black and slow, sealing the fibres for reuse. The smell is thick and sweet, like something pretending to be mercy. The crowd gathers fast, hundreds, maybe thousands. Some jeer, some pray, some just watch, eyes wide, as if hoping to glimpse what fear looks like before it vanishes. You stand beneath the beam, and the world seems strangely clear, the sky sharp, the air still, the river below shimmering like polished glass. A preacher steps forward, mumbling scripture about repentance. The words drift away in the wind. The captain interrupts gently. "We've already confessed," he says. "We just didn't ask permission first." The preacher blinks, unsure if it's blasphemy or philosophy. When the time comes, you look toward the water. The tide is coming in, slow and certain. The smell of salt mingles with tar. Somewhere out there the sea waits, patient as ever. You think about everything it's taken. The blood, the laughter, the noise. You think about how it always ends like this. Wood creaking, rope tightening, air rushing out. Someone in the crowd begins to cry. Someone else laughs. You wonder which reaction is closer to the truth. The captain goes first. He doesn't flinch, doesn't speak. The rope snaps taut, and for a moment the sound is louder than the crowd, louder than the river, louder than everything. Then it's quiet again. The rest follow one by one until silence becomes its own ceremony. Afterward they tar the bodies and hang them in. Cages along the riverbank, gibbets they call them. A warning for anyone tempted to listen to the sea too closely. The wind moves through the empty ribs, producing a faint whistle, a tune that sounds almost like the old shanties the crew used to sing. People say it's just air. You're not so sure. Days pass. The sun blackens the tar, the bodies stiffen, and the city forgets. The pamphlets reappear, full of new exaggerations, cleaner endings, better morals. The readers will eat their supper over descriptions of men they'll never meet. The Empire calls it deterrence. The sea calls it recycling. At night, when the tide rises high enough, water reaches the base of the gallows. It laps against the wood, gentle and deliberate. The sound is almost affectionate, as if the sea has returned for what's hers. The cages sway softly, creaking like ship masts. The air smells of iron and salt. Some say that when the wind is right, the voices of the condemned can still be heard, not crying, not cursing, just laughing. You believe it. Laughter always travels farthest over water. The Empire wins, of course. It always does. It has paperwork and patience. But the sea is older. The sea keeps its own records. Quieter, deeper, harder to destroy. Every wave that touches those blackened shores carries a memory of the men who refused to live quietly. You imagine them now, stripped of rope and tar, walking again across the ocean floor, boots stirring silt, eyes open, calm. The current pulls them forward, back toward the places where they first lost everything. Not as ghosts, not as monsters, but as part of the tide itself, ungoverned, unburied, unending. As darkness falls over the river, the cages fade into silhouettes, each one swaying slightly in the breeze. The sea murmurs below, gentle as breath. You listen closely and think you hear it whisper something. Not words exactly, but understanding. The sea was patient, it seems to say, the Empire less so. You close your eyes, letting that sound wash through you. The quiet rhythm of water against wood, of history repeating itself softly. The wind carries the last traces of laughter out to sea, where it will drift forever, harmless and free. And somewhere beneath the waves, the ocean begins to sing again,